Welcome to the What If audio experience. We're taking a real look inside of what it means to be successful in today's society. From entrepreneurship to family, from victories to failures, we're covering all the topics of what it looks like to create your own definition of success. Our mission is to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. We may not have all the answers, but the one thing we know for sure is it starts with you.
All right, welcome to the What If podcast. This is episode 1, and we're going to go for it. This has been a long time in the making. I think we bought this equipment a year and a half ago.
At least
a
year and a half ago.
Have never done it. So I'm Jason Jensen here with my older brother, Jeffrey Jensen.
What is up?
And we are doing the What If podcast. So we're excited. This is the first episode that we have done. We actually were on our first podcast ever this past week and had been talking about starting this, and I think that was the push. That's what If is all about. This podcast is created, and our inspiration behind it is exactly that. What if you went for it in your business, your relationship, your health, your finances, you name it. The entire premise of What If is to just take that extra step. And I think a lot of the stuff you're going to hear on here is going to be focused around business, family, finances, health, wellness, you name it. It's just to encourage and inspire people to get out there and make it happen. So that's the idea behind What If is what if you went for it? What if you took the goals you've always had and you took that first step in creating success? And I think on this first episode, we'll start with some backstory. I'll kick it to Jeff and just give both of our backstories. He can share his and I'll share mine. And we'll go from there, and we're excited to finally start this journey, and we appreciate you guys listening. So,
yes, I think it's funny. I think I was thinking about this after we did the podcast the other day, just really thinking about our childhood. And we're both real big fans of Gary Vee. We listen to him a lot, and he talks about purebred entrepreneurs. And I just was thinking about how, I don't know, I must have been 10, you must have been 8, somewhere in that range. And instead of going outside and like riding bikes and hanging out with our friends, we were begging our mom to make homemade sweet tea and lemonade. We lived on a golf course, not really on a golf course, but walking distance to a hole on a golf course. And we would go sit in the tree line and we would hustle golfers to come over and we would sell them homemade iced tea and lemonade, and we would do specials. You know, we'd say, hey, we'll fill up your cup, your whole big cup from the golf course for $1. And even fast forwarding, there was these things called power bands that were pretty big for a while. We used to sell those out of the back of our trunk, and the list goes on and on and on until we finally got to be, in that 20-plus range and really started to dive into some real businesses. And so my background, terrible student. I'm the complete opposite of Jason. He was super smart. School came really easy to him. I was a terrible student. Pretty much in middle school, got D's and F's. I had a lot of rough conversations with mom and dad and teachers and teacher conferences. In high school, I think I put a little more effort in. So I was mainly a C student in high school, but never really enjoyed school, never really was good at it. Always daydreaming and wandering into other things, wanting to sell stuff or make money or build businesses. And so graduated high school, went to college for about a minute, 3 different times. So went to school, dropped out, went to school, dropped out, went to school, dropped out, and then stumbled into a career of kind of the food industry, kind of got sucked into that. It was like a love-hate relationship. Loved to cook, loved the creativity side of it, but hated the restaurant industry, which then led me to thinking, okay, I've got to go do something on my own. How can I go work for myself? What could I do that requires very little skill, but yet could still pay me money? And so started mowing lawns, started a landscaping company called Jeffrey's Lawn Care way back in the day, and just went out and literally hustled, printed off makeshift flyers on pink and green and blue and yellow paper, and did some old school marketing that we used to do for our parents, just riding through neighborhoods and sticking them in the bottom of mailboxes, and built that up to a decent company for my age, but Sold that. Kind of got caught in the, it was my first ever business, wasn't very smart with my money. Summer was great, bought a truck, did the whole thing, bought equipment, and then winter came. I'm also watching Game of Thrones right now, so winter is coming. And winter came, and that really knocked me down. That was pretty much my first business failure. Basically ran out of money. Sold the equipment that I had to salvage just a little bit of income. And that money actually is what allowed me to buy the engagement ring to marry my wife, which this month we're celebrating 7 years of marriage. So shout out to my wonderful wife, Lauren. But that led me back into the restaurant industry to kind of get back on my feet. And that is when I stumbled into network marketing. And so got real involved with network marketing. And I think it was more of the aspect of it was a vehicle. It was something that I could really drive my energy into, but it was still sales. It was still being an entrepreneur. Ran with that for almost 7 years, and had a lot of success. And in between that, started another landscaping company, just kind of fell back into that and had a lot of success with that, built it up and sold it. And I think if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times people talk about, your failures are more important than your success, and, getting punched in the face, so to say. That kind of happened to me in 2016, I guess, 2015, 2016, had a very, very successful network marketing business, and got a text message one day that the company shut down, and literally my income went from a very, very nice, successful income that was paying for our family to zero. And so that was another, punch in the face type thing. And then went on to build up my landscaping company again, sell that off, run another landscaping company, and then kind of fell into the trap of, man, I just can't work for somebody else. I was literally just felt like I was suffocating, and decided to start the current business that we're in, that Jason and I own and operate together, which is 212 Meal Prep, which has been insane for the last 2 years. But I'm going to kick it back to him and let Jason kind of share his backstory, and then we'll get into a little bit more meat and potatoes on 212.
Meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I got to use food references.
That's good. So, I mean, like Jeff said, from an early childhood, it's interesting as you grow up and you really start to look back and think about why you acted why you did or why certain things occurred. But, realizing our parents have owned a business for, 20 years now, been in the daycare industry. So from a young age, saw a lot of things. I think we've gained a lot of patience and kindness from my mom, and seen a lot of work ethic in our dad, and they both share those characteristics. But just that hustle, that I never really recognized that as a young kid, but now being older, can definitely attribute so much of our success to our parents and how they raised us. And like Jeffrey said, I think the first memory of business is the golf course, the selling tea and lemonade. We also do golf balls. I can vividly remember the balance of right from wrong when a golfer would shank a ball near you, and did you grab it and resell it back to them? Or
if it was a Titleist Pro V1, it was probably going into the collection to be sold.
So selling balls, fishing them out of the lakes in there, and selling them to the golfers. So as early as that, I can remember being in middle school and selling candy out of my book bag, and just always having the dream of wanting more, but not really understanding how to get there. And it's still a growing process today, but did very well in school, always did well in middle school and high school, fell in love with sports in high school. And, one thing that's been a big part of our journey is weight loss and, self-confidence. And that's something that I know I always struggled with, and I think our family has, being bigger guys. I was the tallest kid in my middle school and got cut from the basketball team. Both years I tried out, ended up doing theater instead, was in a couple plays, which, who knows, led to maybe some skill set here. But got into ninth grade year, barely made the team, fell in love with sports, put everything I had into that, had a big transformation in the next 4 years. Went to Coastal Carolina University on a scholarship and did track and field, but was just always plagued with the injury bug. Fractured my back my junior year. I threw the hammer, shot, and discus, And so I ended that career, and that was probably one of the first times that I was kind of lost. I think all athletes out there that have performed well, you have the dream of going to the next level, whether it's college or for me it was the Olympics. And when that ended, just kind of didn't know what to do. Did really well in school and was so focused on sports, I wasn't sure of my plan after college. So when I did graduate, the first job I took, always helped with our parents' business. I can remember being 12, 13 and painting buildings and dressing up like Jimbo the Clown. They owned a franchise called Jim Bree for a little while, and going on field trips and just countless hours working with their business. But the first job for me outside of that was serving tables at a place called Pirate's Voyage. Had to dress up like a pirate to serve tables.
You were a good-looking pirate.
Wasn't exactly the funnest thing in the
Big
world,
pirate.
The most fun. But yeah, so did that and kind of got caught in the trap as well of just working all day, going out at night, just didn't really know where my life was taking me. Jeffrey had gotten into network marketing, and that was the first time for me that I had seen such a drastic shift in someone. I saw he was in a similar place of not really knowing what to do to all of a sudden, not that he'd figured it out, but just having mentors and personal development, all these things that I just, had in my life but didn't know they were there. And having structure, having the guidance to say, hey, these are the steps to create success. This is what you need to do. And it took me a long time to get on board with it, but got on board with what he was doing with network marketing, and that was a great experience. I think that it taught us so much of what we know today. I'd recommend it to anyone that is at a point where they don't have guidance, if they're looking for mentorship, if they're looking for something to do. I mean, as far as building their sales and leadership skill sets, it's hard to beat what that industry can provide. So ran with that for several years. Again, great experience, traveled a lot, met a lot of great people. But when that came to an end, found myself in the same place as before as, what is it that I want to do with my life? What is my purpose? And then from that point, and I'd say this is the best advice I could ever give anybody, is if you don't know what you want to do in your life, I think the easier way to figure that out is instead of trying to figure out what it is you do want to do, to work backwards and figure out what it is you don't want to do. And so I have done, once I got out of network marketing, I've had my real estate license for over 7 years now. I've sold timeshare. I went and worked a corporate job. It was like headhunting in the IT field. I've sold commodities for a startup company. Worked for another startup company, and we launched, and 2 weeks in got a call, and the owner said, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. So that didn't work out. Moved back to Myrtle Beach. I was living in Raleigh for a short time to be closer to my now wife, who's also amazing, Stephanie. She was living in Raleigh, so was there. That's when I worked the corporate job and sold commodities. But moved back home. I actually had moved home from the time of my pursuit of entrepreneurship. I moved back home 6 times trying to figure things out. But that was just the drive to never settle or give up on pursuing this. So moved back home, worked for my dad, worked for Jeffrey with the landscaping, and just kind of bounced around for a while, and then found a great opportunity with a company where I was selling commercial insurance. Best job I ever had from like a financial standpoint, management standpoint, loved it. But it's just funny how life works, because at that same time, Jeffrey was working for another company, and I'd say we were both probably 6 to 8 months in, or that's how far I was into it, and just started getting that stirring of like, man, I just miss building something. Sold wind pouches before, sold, just always in sales, always doing something on my own and hustling, and I really just missed that, and I just didn't feel at peace with what I was doing. And that's when the idea of 212 started circulating. And to make a really long story short, it's what's inspired this podcast, is What If. That was a little over 2 years ago where we sat down, and it would have been just as easy to say no to doing it. Jeffrey had a great career. I had a great career. We were married, houses, a lot of responsibility in that. But just had that defining moment where we said, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Why not go for it? What if we did this? And we look forward to today. And, in our first fiscal year of business, did over $1 million in sales, which is just unbelievable to think of. Have been able to impact a lot of people. So it's brought us here today. And that's my encouragement to so many people is, we're still looking for what's the perfect fit. What is the end goal? It's a constant daily challenge that you're always striving for. But I just think so many people miss that the success we've had in 212 now has definitely been predicated on all of those other things. And I don't think it's necessarily those other things were failures because we learned from them. But if it wasn't for Jeffrey's past cooking experience and everything he gained through building businesses, and same with me, doing different businesses and leadership skills, and just all of that mixed together came to form a great business now. So life's been crazy the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think when people look at us too, it's really easy to be like, oh, overnight success. 2 years in, we've done we're into the millions of sales. We've grown from basically a small kitchen in Myrtle Beach with a few pickup locations to 29 pickup locations that span from the Myrtle Beach area all the way through the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So we're in, how many different cities are we technically in?
16 different
16 different cities. So we started in Myrtle Beach, grown to over 16 different cities that we service. We've made, how many meals have we made? You're my numbers guy.
400,000 meals.
400,000. Let's call it 400,000 meals in 2 years. From an outsider looking in, it'd be really easy to be like, oh man, those guys are just overnight success, crushing it, came out of nowhere. But when you really look at our track record and our past, it's like failure after failure after failure after failure of businesses. And like you said, they weren't true failures. We learned a ton from it. And I think that's the key is if you're out there and you're wanting to start a business and, or let's even take it down the path of like, you're not an entrepreneur, but you just want to do better at what you're doing. It's like, you've got to, one, take the risk, but two, you've got to be patient because I think when you really look back at what we've done, every little thing that we've been a part of over the last, for me, 15 years has all really added up to why we're successful today. I think that's had a huge impact on why we've built a business so fast, why we treat people the way we treat people, why we have the employees that we have. It's all been a snowball effect of all the different experiences, all the different losses in a micro that we've had has created somewhat of a macro success. So I think that's been really cool to see. And for people listening, I think you got to really understand that there's no quick way to become successful. It takes just hard work, long time, and it takes going through the process over and over and over again before stuff really starts to click.
And I think too, it's what I've learned from it is success. The definition of that can just be so different, and I think it's where you're at as well. Like when people are struggling financially, the biggest thing on your mind is making more money. But what I've come to realize is, once you make more money, well, then your success may change. And then it may be you want a better relationship, you want to be in better health, better fitness, have a different career. So I think so many people, and like you said, not just people who want to be entrepreneurs, because I definitely don't think owning a business is for everyone, and that's okay. But for anyone in any walk of life, we put so much pressure on ourselves. I know I do it. You put so much pressure on yourself to be quote unquote successful. But man, I've met so many people who financially the outside world wouldn't call them successful, but they're happy. They have a great marriage, they have a great relationship with their kids or their friends or their community, or they have purpose. And at the end of the day, I think that's true success is what's making you happy. And we live in a world now with social media and just the constant pressures of seeing people's highlight reels that makes you feel like, I'm just not good enough. Even with this business being 2 years in on paper, it's unbelievable the success we've had. But, there's areas in my life now with wanting to get in better shape or, get healthier, continue to grow my relationship with my wife or the community, whatever it may be. You're always striving to want more. And I think that is a healthy relationship to have with yourself. But again, you can't be too hard on yourself in it. I think the biggest thing that I've learned with having success and being happy with it is just growth. Tony Robbins always talks about, he calls it CANI, but it's constant and never-ending improvement. And I think that's the real ticket. So whether you're looking for more money, want to get healthier, wanting to build better relationships, I think as long as you're improving, hopefully in all areas of life, but at least in something, that's really going to help with that fulfillment. I think it's just growth and community and people is what's really going to make you happy. Because from my experience, it used to be so much money-driven focus, and I've just come to learn, for me, like, money is not my drive. It's just not. It's not what motivates me. Like, obviously, yes, a certain amount to provide for my family and to be able to put back into the business, but that's not what gets me up in the morning. And I think it's just figuring out what is it that actually drives you. And again, the best advice I can give people is, if you're listening to this and you're at a point in your life where you're not happy, it really is so difficult to figure out, like, what is it that is going to fulfill me? What is it that's going to make me happy? I think the real answer is that's already in you. It's just a choice. It's a choice whether you're happy or not in your day-to-day. But as far as what you're doing in your career, your life, I think it's so much easier to work backwards and figure out, okay, what do I not want to do? And just get out there and try and try things out. And if it's not for you, move on. I've left so many jobs, and I'm not saying try something and if you don't like it or if it's hard after one day, quit. But I gave a lot of things, a lot of my effort and time, and when I realized it wasn't aligned with what I wanted, you leave the right way. I never burned a bridge, never hurt a relationship with places I had left, but it's just helped me realize and get one step closer to where we are today, which even with our business now, is this the end goal? I don't know. It's constantly seeing what's next and building what we have.
If you asked our wives, they would say no.
They would say absolutely not, because we've done so many different things.
Some would call us serial entrepreneurs.
Yeah, but that's just the message here, is what we want to provide with this podcast of What If is hopefully just some real advice from people that have actually done it. We've done so many different things in different aspects of sales. We've had success. We've built a traditional business now that I would definitely label as successful. But real advice that's not just like, hey, man, grind 24/7 and do whatever it takes all the time and get rich and post on Instagram. And I don't know, I feel like there's just a lot of pitches out there that things are going to happen quick.
There's a lot of BS in the system.
There definitely is. And it's just not true. Anything to get rich quick, it's not going to work. And it takes time. I'm 28, almost 29, and it's been since a kid, but really since 18, 19 years old, that this pursuit has happened. And the amount of things we've given up, I could sit here for an hour, miss birthdays and parties and weekends and just all of it. This life of owning a business has so many upsides, but there's also so much behind the scenes that people don't see. The 12, 15-hour days, the countless weekends that you miss opportunities to do the fun things to build the business, the putting everything back, all the money you have back into the business. I would say this is the first one that didn't almost take all my money away. Every other business, it's like we just put our head down, put everything we had into it, and if it worked, great, and if not, we just always took the mindset of like, hey, it's not a failure, it's just a stepping stone.
Yeah, and even with 212, just looking back on the last 2 years, I mean, I can vividly remember driving home the third night. So we launched on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday, I can remember driving. It had to be 1 or 2 in the morning driving home from delivery, because everything just took 1,000 times longer than we anticipated. And I can remember just breaking down and crying, just driving home 2 in the morning, just crying and being like, what in the world did we just get ourselves into? Like, this is going to ruin our lives. And then you fast forward to today, and we've built this incredible company with an incredible team. And it's just funny what took us that many hours to do. I think it probably took us like almost 40 hours to do 700 meals. We can crank out 5,000 meals in 40 hours now. So it's just insane to see the growth. But yeah, no one sees that. No one sees you crying behind your steering wheel at 2 a.m. or no one experiences the anxiety that you have when you're launching a new company and just everything's on the line, and the countless. I think we drove to, when we launched our Charlotte basically locations, we were driving back and forth in North Carolina every week doing our delivery. I think we did that for
36 weeks together and you did it by yourself for another 20 or so. I mean, I think you drove to North Carolina pretty much for a little over a year every Sunday. And I was there for probably 70% of that, but just, that's a 16-hour day of just driving and putting the miles on the car and laying the foundation for the business. And so, that's our big thing with What If, is just letting people know, like, hey, one, if you're an entrepreneur, like, that is fantastic. Go after your dreams. And our goal with this podcast is we're going to do a lot of interviews and have a lot of people on sharing their story of success and kind of what was their what if moment. But we also want to be as transparent and real with people about, this does take a lot of hard work and it does take a lot of self-awareness and realizing, like, what your strengths are. Not everyone is a great number one. I'll be the first one to say it. Like, I feel like I'm a fantastic 1A/2. Like, from a creative standpoint, from just loving business and loving sales, I'm fantastic in those areas, but I'm not organized. I'm not financially the best. And so partnering with Jason, who's definitely a strong number one, who's got the organizational skills of, keeping a business run on point, has created massive success for the two of us, because
for sure
it allows us to both be great in the areas that we're great at. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're like a super creative person, you've got a great business idea, there's nothing wrong with finding a phenomenal partner who has the strengths in the areas that you're weak in. I think self-awareness is the big thing here, knowing what you're good at, because I know with the other companies I've run by myself, the areas that I lacked in were the organizational skills. Now, I could do it, and I ran successful companies, and I think you have to have that in you. You can't go into being an entrepreneur blind. You have to have some extent of knowledge of how to run your business. You need to know your numbers and all that stuff, but there's nothing wrong with finding the right partner and teaming up with someone who's going to do really, really well in the areas that you're not, and vice versa. Maybe you're a super strong operations guy or girl. Maybe you're deep into the numbers and the finances, but you don't have that creative side. You don't have that idea. Like, there's someone out there probably looking for you that's a creative. So I think this podcast is just hopefully going to bring light to a lot of things in the entrepreneur space that, not a whole lot of people are talking about, and also shed light on a lot of people's stories, whether they're huge successes. I can already think of some people that we'll have on that have created, multiple, 7+ figure incomes. And I can think of people that I want to have on the show that, are, making $50,000 a year, but they took that what if moment and they're living their life and they're living it to the fullest. So that's
having purpose with it, too. It's
for
like
sure.
we said before, it's not. I think so many people just get so caught up in this idea that you've got to make 6 figures, and you got to make 100 or 500 grand a year or $1 million a year, or do all this crazy stuff, or be an Instagram blogger and travel the world. And it's just not the case. Like, I just don't think that's what true success is. Now, people that accomplish that, if that's their purpose, their passion, they're fulfilled, that's unbelievable. But yeah, just saying that, to piggyback off what Jeff was saying with having different types of successful people on here, that's what I'm excited for this podcast, is to show not just financially successful people. I think too many people get so caught up in never starting because the end goal seems so big. I think people make it sound like, oh, if you're a successful entrepreneur, you're making 100 grand or 200 grand or $1 million a year. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that has to be the case. I don't believe that's the measuring block of success, is how much money you're making. Even with our business with 212, I mean, the numbers sound so big, but in those first couple of years, you're investing so much back in the business, and money is the last thing, as far as personally for me, that I evaluate what I'm doing with. I mean, there's so many things I could do to essentially make more money, but it's about being filled with purpose and happiness and making an impact and a difference. So that's my big encouragement to people, is finding something you're passionate about. And even like Jeff said, that's great advice, is finding people you can work with. We make a phenomenal team. I would say for me, it's funny, I try to think about what my hobbies or my passions are. I don't really have specific areas. Like, Jeff has always been an all-in type of guy, whether it was wakeboarding or golf or snowboarding, which we live in Myrtle Beach, so that one always kind of threw a curveball.
There's a backstory to the snowboarding,
but he always goes all in. When he finds something he wants to do, he gets the best of the best. He dives all in. He goes 100%, and then most of the time, 6 months later, it's on to something else, which I think is a great attribute to have, especially when you're partnered with someone that can dial it in. Because with us, I would say for me, I just love business and people and building and organizing, but I don't really have a passion. Like, I know Jeff is passionate about cooking, and just he's always had more of that love for something, which is such a great partnership here. Because from a creative standpoint and making our videos and photos, I'm so impressed because he just fell in love with it, bought all the stuff, which was very expensive, and I wasn't thrilled with. But then now we're here. Like, I don't know how to set the podcast up or the photos he does or the videos. Again, I could learn it. I know I could. But that just doesn't do it for me. So having the meal prep business, I would have never imagined myself in this. But for me, it really doesn't matter. As long as it's something I believe in, it's morally sound, it's helping people, I could run any business. I feel confident with that. But without having that platform of what it is, it would have been really hard for me to feel that. I think I could have ended up working somewhere. So it's great to have the partnership and find those different attributes. Even with 212, we have a third business partner. So it's myself, Jeffrey, and a guy named Adam Rice, and he owns a gym. He owns 6 locations. And when we first partnered up, he had so much insight, and it was so valuable to learn from him and give us some key components and aspects that really helped launch this. Jeff and I run the day-to-day. We operate it. He's not quite as involved with that. But again, every little piece matters. And I just think that going back to before in the podcast talking about quote-unquote failures, just be aware of that. You know, the people in your life, what you're learning. If you're not benefiting from people around you, it's so important to find people that are going to fill you and give you advice and give you encouragement, especially. That's such a big thing. Is people who will push you to follow your goals. And if you are listening, you're like, oh, that sounds great. I just don't have that in my life. You can find that through so many outlets, books, YouTube, audio, any personal development. Find someone in your corner, whether it's someone you can meet day to day or listen to, that's going to encourage you to want to be successful, because that is our big message here is, hey, what if you actually took a chance, worked hard, were patient enough, stayed consistent enough, and followed through? What is it that you could actually build? And building 212 is what's inspired us, because over 2 years ago, if you would have told me we'd be, a multi-million-dollar business this quick, I would never, honestly wouldn't have believed it. But it was all those past years of just not knowing anything besides giving it our all that led us to where we're at today. And we're just excited for this journey to keep going. And we don't want to settle either as far as being complacent where we're at or feeling like we did it. I don't think you ever get there or finish it. Again, the point is constant growth. So if you ever say, oh, I made it, I just don't think that's the case. I think you've got to keep growing in all aspects of your life. And we're just excited for this podcast to be one of those areas too. So any other thoughts for episode 1? I don't want to go too much deeper, but
no, I say episode 1 in the books, the What If podcast, and look forward to these. Hopefully, I'd say we're going to try and crank them out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I say every week we get in here, and that's our goal and motivation as well. And if you're hearing this, seeing this, right, video and audio.
Yeah, we'll see. The video's not looking that great. We got to get the podcast studio area set up right now. It's a little bit.
This is just real. We are in our
janky.
Our 212 office area. We'll have to show that at some point.
We're in the back of my office right now.
We're in the back of Jeffrey's office. Looks like that door is open. That door is closed.
And
we just said we got to do it.
We've got moving blankets hanging from the ceiling because when I film in here, the audio is not that great. So I have those to mute the sound a little bit, to deaden the sound. So,
but what if we started our podcast finally?
What if? That's what we said. What if? So and it starts with you. If you're gonna go out there and make it happen, it's got to start with you. So
Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and be on the lookout for episode 2 coming soon.
Coming soon. If you are listening, feel free to message us.
You gotta stop hitting the table.
Comment us. Let us know what we can talk about. We're here for you guys. Any questions you have, any subjects you want to cover, we're excited to cover those and help in any way we can. We appreciate you. And
bye for now.
bye for now.